Yo, this is your man BJ, man. I just wanted to say, first and foremost, giving honor to God, who's the head of my life. I'm very grateful for what I'm about to present to you all. This took place a couple weeks ago with Benji Cole out in CBS, People of Distinction. And he and I had a chance to have a healthy radio interview where we talked a little bit about the book. But there was some edits. There was a couple things that might have been missed. So I wanted to make sure that I went out on the limb to tell you first and foremost that no harm was done. You know me, I like to cover all bases, and sometimes to a fault, I think I can be vague. But I don't care. Because if this thing blows up, maybe a play somewhere down the line or some other projects, it's a we thing. But if it falls flat on its face, it's a me thing, all right? So before I guess present the video of the radio interview, which is just a little picture of the book, but you can hear the audio, I wanted to make sure I send a special shout out to certain people that may have not heard the whole entire interview, all right? So I'm going to start with the class of 2001, just because I'd say, like, through the basis of the book, the meat and potatoes, the arc of the book, it's mainly the end of 2001's reign or time being at BFHS, all the way down to the 2006 class. And you guys were roughly 34, 35, 2006. And you boys in 2001, you all are entering your 40s or you're in your 40s. So I'm going to start with the top, man. My boy Jake Snake Pasella, Snake Thornton. I appreciate all you all done. I know you all don't always think that you had any type of influence, but you all were always enthusiastic. Whether it was arguing about football, who did what on the hoop court at second, and my boy Snake P just being able to inspire me through the spiritual journey. All right, Nate, Vince, G-Dub, I know we don't always talk. I see y'all in person, but don't ever think that I don't appreciate y'all. I ain't always going to agree with y'all that y'all gave us the game when it comes to competition and, you know, just dealing with real life situations, but I enjoyed my time. The little bit of segment, you know, just watching y'all flourish from the days of the late 90s where y'all was coming into y'all own manhood to where you are now in life. I'm proud of y'all, man. All right. 2002, I feel like sometimes y'all are really attached to us in a lot of ways, from the days of Venom all the way to some of our endeavors. I know we don't always see eye to eye, similar to what I just said, but I'm going to name a few of y'all, man. Spence, Rory, Leo. I'm going to stop right there. Me and Leo had a chance to always kind of be near each other, whether it was in study hall or just watching that man at the defensive end position. And in basketball, he showed me a lot of things, man. I never had hops like him and Ty, but I remember just the little things where you told me to practice going up with two hands, you know what I mean, when it comes to making layups, to our days conversating J's and other conversations, man. I have not talked to you since probably 2004, but I ain't never forgot, man. I ain't no fool. Dane, very interesting character. Mr. 4000 himself. 2-6. Very strong personality. I know we're not always, again, in the same lane. We're not on the same platform. You do a lot of things that are non-traditional and unorthodox, bro. But for this time being, I'm very proud of you in different ways. Just having the courage to do what you do. Now, what is it that you do? You dang. Don't mean I always like it, bro. But I'm still proud of you. Definitely. I mean, you know. My man Bullet. Brian Pitts. Thank you for being a big brother in a lot of times, man. Eric Corbin. Rico Anderson. Appreciate you, brothers, man. Mike Pisano. Wow. Justin Crep, Adam Crep, The Crep family. Sugarfoot, James Anderson, Judd, Shiro, Matt Karcheski, Mickey Cooper. Thank you. Alright, but none of you all from the 2002 class understand how impactful maybe me and Tyrone's friendship was and still is to this day. He's always been the barometer stick, kind of like our Regis or Slap in our class. I appreciate that man for always keeping us somewhat together, even in hostile situations. And I'm praying that that man is just as spectacular in the second part of his life as he was the first 40 years. To the 2003 class, I'm sure that this is going to come off kind of vulgar, but them is my niggas. Even the ones that don't share the same pigmentation. Paul Joseph, Fife, Alan Karcheski, Macklin, Seth Jobe, Danny Tamanio, Tony Farr, Nate Lewis, Rory, Barry, Regis Bolden, Ashley, Brown, Tweety, Bliss, Blair Cockfield, Torian Potter, Rodney, Slappy, Dijon Alfred, Dougie Buford, Dom Tisdale, Jason Johnson. I don't know, man. Words can't describe. Words can't describe, man. Let's move on to the ladies, because I don't want to get all this. Y'all know this ain't me. Deanna Williams, Brittany Mobley, rest in peace, Deborah Cleckley, Carrie Ann Rodney, Jaquela Banks, Lindsay, Tiana, thank you. Thank you for providing healthy balance in my life. Angel Corcoran. Yeah, there was times, people had crushes. There was times that we might have crossed the line. We might have fell out. But I can't speak for everybody from the crew, but we always praying for one another. At least the core of us. I've had conversations with some of y'all in passing. Even down to people who's down in Georgia. Tabitha Martin. Thank you. Thank you. I want to say you was one of the first, you and Tonette with it, who purchased the book. I appreciate you. I appreciate Tonette with it. I appreciate Seth with it. Let's go down the list. Jordan Potter, thank you for giving me the permission. Rock. Lori Shakespeare. You become a sister to me in many ways. And, I don't want to go too far with it because I know I can go long-winded how much I appreciate you for praying for me and my family. I appreciate you much. Jaren, wherever you are, thank you. You and your family. Keish, Mike, your mother, I'm praying for them. To the 2005 clique, y'all already know, man, I always looked at you all as the next powerful group of young men. Starting from the top for me, no disrespect. Cam Mobley, you always was a little brother to me. You already know how I feel about you, bro. I'm always still available. Wishing you and your family nothing but green pastures. Murdy, you, and Ty Jack. I'm going to see y'all in person because there's some things that I want to tell y'all face to face. I want to salute first and foremost because whether y'all know it or not, y'all extension. I know sometimes there are conversations that need to be maybe had in person, in private. No beef. Just need to, have dialogue, healthy dialogue. All right. Tarv. No one knows, man. I think you had the most potential out of the crew. You, BT, Mob, and Shane. Your story will be told over and over again. Down to the 06 class. QB1, Dom Henderson. Reek, Jack, Schmack. Oh, I can't forget Kalen and Wes and Godson. Cal Singleton. Period 1, buddy. And Basic Foods, me, you, and Pong, DeWarren Ford. Appreciate y'all. And Angel. I just don't know what else to say, man. Jeep, Carlos, Carlos Jeter, Lance Jeter, Coach Jeter, Coach Kleck. I'm going to miss people. So I feel like sometimes before this stuff gets out there, if I could, I would make sure that I'm always checking bases. I'm always checking in. It needs to be more intentional, as my boy Regis Bowen said. And it is. Don't have Facebook. Maybe one day down in the future, I guess. I know that the person who's handling the book told me that I need to make myself more relatable and able to be touched. So I'm going to start working on that. And maybe I'll talk to Reg and Bibby behind closed doors to see how I could go about that. But just the teachers and then people who I really haven't seen in a long time. Danielle Hoover. I think about all y'all, man. I mean, I really do. Like, there's just things that I cross with these kids that I work with, and I see a piece of all of y'all. Just the people like that you wouldn't even think maybe that I think about. Lordo and Dom DeSimone and the teachers. I said that before. I see them in different forms now in the inner city and even outside the city in all these counties. We're working with kids. You just never know the type of impact y'all had on me, man. All right. So if I forgot anybody, charge it to my head, man, not my heart. All right. So with that being said, here is the radio interview. My email will be provided if you have any questions to the 2003 class. I cannot wait to see y'all in the flesh. All praises to the Most High, and I'm out. Peace.
Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com.
And on the line with us today, we have BJ Tench. And we're going to be discussing his amazing book, We Earned Our Stripes, A Tiger's Tale. That's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And I do want to take this opportunity and point out, BJ was brought to our network, People of Distinction, by one of the best publishers in the business, Workbook Press Publishing. So if you or anyone you know have a book that they'd like moved, well, people, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give. Contact Workbook Press and have their fantastic team move it for you. You can find out more information on them through workbookpress.com. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have BJ here on the line. I'm telling you, people, you're going to be able to see yourself through these characters. And when you do that, that's really where the learning comes from. So I'm telling you, listen, if for nothing else, you take this book as just a story, just a journey to follow, well, hey, you're doing something right there. But if you can take it past that, and you can try to see it for what it is in terms of the messages that are really being taught here, and take some of those and implement it into your day-to-day lives, well, listen, as my grandmother would say, now you're cooking with gas, and I love it, okay? There's something here for everyone, and at the end of the day, BJ is the expert. He's written the book, he's done the research, and he's going to be able to articulate it all much better than I ever could. So let's bring him here on the line with us, okay? BJ, first and foremost, man, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How you doing today?
I'm blessed, Benji. I cannot complain.
Absolutely. Listen, the pleasure is all ours. Thank you for being a guest. And BJ, I truly mean it, man. I think what you're embarking upon here is profound and is going to be so beneficial to each individual reader that picks it up. Because as I stated, listen, just as a fictional story to get lost in, I think that there's so much benefit for that for a lot of readers. But then to take it a step further and have some of your readers be able to recognize certain situations and think more critically because of it. Listen, man, I think this is a fantastic lesson to be learned. So in my opinion, listen, you are the absolute perfect embodiment of a person of distinction. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest on our network. And before we jump into the book, I think it's important to learn a little bit more about your background, man. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, please.
Sure. I was born and raised the first part of my life on the north side of Pittsburgh, home of the Steelers, Pirates, Penguins. Grew up around a lot of godly people. My father, my mother, both sides, both the matriarch and patriarchal side, are deep rooted and anchored in religion as well as academics, and have outstanding character. That was passed down to me and my sisters. I too, like you just said, Benji, I'm the youngest. I have two older sisters, and the journey just began with me just having a passion to learn, being around soulful people. And that helped me get into sports, get into academics. And then eventually my father took a position. In that position, he was in the clergy. He's a pastor. If some of our listeners don't understand what the whole clergy title means, he's a pastor. So we got a phone call, mid-'90s, that we're moving outside of the city of Pittsburgh, and we're moving to a little small town called Beaver Falls. And most people, when they look at Beaver Falls, they think of the Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath. I myself, who grew up in 85 to 90% predominantly black neighborhood, so-called black, African-American, whatever way you want to plug that in. We moved to a diverse community out in Beaver County, which is, again, Beaver Falls is a small town outside of Pittsburgh. And that's really when all of this, you call me an expert, that's when the journey began. I had a chance to get along and get introduced to people from all walks of life. And that pretty much transitioned me into the college experience. I played a little ball at a junior college up in New York. The school was called Hudson Valley Community College, where I played football, and my major was mass communications. But I was still a little uncertain, Benji. I didn't know exactly what the next step was, because if you all don't know, junior college is 2 years. So I was able to bust my butt in the classroom and on the field. And I received a scholarship to a HBCU at Delaware State University. And then I got into a little bit of trouble there, knucklehead stuff, getting into different squabbles and getting into fights. But a lot of that was rooted because I was injured. I had torn my ACL, and I was battling things and with, we like to say, the mental body and the emotional body, and it was coming out in my physical. And with that being said, a mistake caused me to lose my scholarship. And then I transferred again, and my journey wasn't complete, but I played a little ball down there until my leg just wouldn't hold up anymore. But I was able, and I'm going to give God all the glory, I was able to get my degree from West Liberty State University. And since then, I've been working with at-risk youth here in the city of Pittsburgh and the surrounding counties for a wonderful company called Perspective LLC, and that's spelled without an I because our perspective doesn't always have to be your perspective. We work in youth homes, group homes, detention centers, and so on. I have 4 beautiful children. I have a lady of my life who she's my rock. She's my support system. And this is all part of the journey now where we are today, this morning, with you, Benji.
There you have it. BJ, man, can I just say there's so much to unpack there. And people, just from his story, just from his background, there's so much to unpack. And it's one of inspiration. It's one that a lot of people can relate to, especially athletes. When you're so geared towards, when your education is wrapped in that scholarship, it becomes so much of your identity. And then through injury, through whatever other means, to have that stripped away, listen, man, you don't even have to go into the specific details. I know some of the hardships that you must have been experiencing through that. But what I'm saying in terms of inspiration is, listen, man, we all trip up, right? That's just life. When we're on that journey of life, we're going to hit some potholes and we're going to get some flat tires. You pull it over to the side, you change that tire, you keep it pushing. And I think that is what he did here. And congratulations on being able to push through, and the journey never stops. So I'm sure every day you're still fighting, but congratulations on keeping that head on your shoulder, continuing to push forward. What you're doing with the inner city youth that you had mentioned and the company that you're working with. But also congratulations on what sounds like a beautiful family that you've constructed around yourself. Nothing but continued success to you and your loved ones, BJ. And without further ado, man, the anchor for today's interview is all about your book, We Earned Our Stripes, A Tiger's Tale. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Awesome. Well, the conceivement process was back in 2017. So I have a friend named Regis Bolton, who's dear to my heart. He had been battling some things emotionally with his mother, who had stage 4 cancer. And he had spoke with me at a small reservoir over here in the Pittsburgh area. And he said he needed to talk to me about, what had been going on with his mother. But he said that this had catapulted his conversation towards me about keeping our band of brothers together. And he passed me a book, Building Your Band of Brothers by Stephen Mansfield. I read it, and I'm asking him, like, what is all this about? And he just encouraged me to start the writing process. And I asked him, Benji, what exactly what do you want me to write about? And, what should I do to keep, us all together? First, it started with phone conversations. But as time progressed, I just started to write things down, about my experiences, but I didn't want to name drop. Mm-hmm. So I used fictional characters that were based off of real events in that small town of Beaver Falls. And during the whole process, I used pictures, videos, old snapshots, newspapers to help me to be as accurate as possible. But I didn't want to step on anyone's toes because some of the characters in the book I haven't spoke to in a very long time. But I was able to reach out to them in the reflecting process to make sure that, once again, I was accurate, but more importantly, how did they feel about the story being told? And mostly everyone, if not everyone, was fine with the whole idea, with the whole process. Some folks didn't want to use their name, and I totally understand that. Right. But that was the thrill of actually just telling our story. And the main character, Bernie Timmons, which is really about myself. I'll self-disclose that with the listeners out there. Bernie Timmons also moves from the Pittsburgh area to Beaver Falls, and he gets a chance to interact with other young men and young ladies as the book goes on in this town. But while he's interacting with these other youth, these other at-risk youth, he's finding out true parts of his own character, his own insecurities. There were times in the book where it seemed that he had certain hiccups because he wasn't quite popular yet. The book starts, Benji, in 1997. So the character is in the 7th grade. He's 12 years old. He's kind of a chunky person at this time, not really sure of himself. I'm sure most listeners out there can identify with an awkward stage. Mm-hmm. Well, Bernie, which is myself, had an awkward stage. Not quite popular, just kind of fitting in, new to the school district, just trying to find his way. Well, thank God for sports, thank God for church, and all of the community. They were able to keep us together. And when I say us, the other characters in the book. But the book itself captures Calvin Jackson, which is based off of a true character, a true person in the community who was very gifted athletically, but he had a lot of adversity in the home. His mother was battling with drugs. She had been arrested for prostitution, and mentally he's trying to focus in the classroom. Well, he ends up being Bernie Timmons' best friend, which is totally different to Bernie's character. Bernie's character, like mine in real life, as they like to say, is of the clergy. His mother is a special education teacher. So they live on opposite ends of the tracks, but due to sports, they have a chance to interlock, and their friendship blossoms. But there are other characters who come into the book, such as Tremont Barksdale, Regis Bolton, Darren Shakespeare. All of these guys all met on the football field or at recess or on the basketball court. But once the book gets really into, I'd say, the mid portion, the characters are in the freshman year, which would be 9th grade. For some of you listeners out there who may not understand, that's when different adversity starts to play. The drugs, peer pressure, the lady folk, sex topics, All of that is things that I think most individuals in our society today are facing. Some things never change. But the beauty of the book, Benji, I would like to say is there is a transition portion. If it starts in 1997, we're at the end of the millennium. So a lot of the readers today who I like to target, the demographics will be from 7th grade, I'd say, to about 11th grade. They may not be able to embody or envision what it's like to anticipate a phone call. They may not understand what it was like to come home and have a secretary, which was our parents back then, where it's like, hey, Mom, you know, Cassandra called or Deanna called or Rodney called me, but I didn't get the message. Well, back in the day, that's how it was. If your parents didn't tell you who called, there's a potential chance that the next day there could be some very strenuous dialogue just due to the communication process. But I want to encourage the readers through this book to understand that if we got through it, so can you. Nothing's new under the sun, whether it's communication, whether it's the way of passing messages, whether it's dealing with peer pressure, all of that is still going on today. And as the book goes on towards the end of the 11th grade year, and obviously it ends as a senior, Bernie's struggling with closure. The next chapter. He has a girlfriend that he's been dating for 2.5 years in the book. She's younger than him, Cassie. So her issues are, and her anxiety is, okay, my boyfriend's going away to college. He's a football player. What's that mean for me? He's also battling closure, going to college visits. It's just a lot to unpack. But every character in the book, from Calvin to Tremont to Regis to Denise to DeWarn, everyone has their own set of issues. And I think that the reader or the viewer of the book will take something out of that, and hopefully they'll be able to educate another youth in their home or in their community and so on.
Listen, I love it. I absolutely love it. People, I'm telling you, there's so much to be gained here. Now, as he said, this is for a demographic of like the high school age, right? Or around teenage years. Listen, this is a fantastic book for parents. This is a fantastic book for adults as well, because you can take those circumstances, and I promise you, you can rearrange it for an adult circumstance. And how can you gain and be lifted through this? And what can you do in that particular situation, if you were in it, to get past it? People, again, we're here on the line with BJ Tench. We're discussing his amazing book, We Earned Our Stripes, A Tiger's Tale, available for purchase through Amazon as well as BarnesandNoble.com. BJ, next question here, man. As we start to close up from this book, 'cause I do want to give us an opportunity to talk about an upcoming title that I think is really important for us to touch up on. You mentioned before the demographic that you're hoping really picks up this book. Well, I want to go a little further in depth. It's a two-part question here. First and foremost, I love the title of the book because it symbolizes so much for me in terms of already how it has my mind clicking and things that I think about when I read that. We Earned Our Stripes, A Tiger's Tale. So I love that. But you know what happens when you assume? So I'm not going to assume the connection that it has to the book and your inspiration behind it. So A, what inspired that particular title? And then B, we know the demographic for this book, but what is some of the main messages that you hope your reader takes from it?
Awesome. Well, first, the inspiration behind the title, We Earned Our Stripes, A Tiger's Tale. Beaver Falls, like many other small school districts in Beaver County, which is a county outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, most people automatically would assume their mascot at their school, Beaver Falls, why not the Beavers? Well, there's a South Beaver, there's a Western Beaver, there's a Beaver, Beaver Catholic. There's all these other school titles and mascots. When we moved to Beaver Falls, and when I say we, because the story is based off of my experience, but the character itself is Bernie Timmons. Beaver Falls' mascot was the Tigers, or still is to this day. And there is a connection between the elementary school, the middle school, as well as the high school itself, the senior high. It's all connected through an alley. It's called Tiger Alley. When I was using my thinking skills, and I had the brain trust behind me with some of my fellas, like what exactly would be, a great title. I played around with it, Benji, and then it just came to me. It's like an epiphany. We earned our stripes because we need that. We need to tell the youth in our community as well as, abroad, that whether they know it or not, you can make it through. And the reason why I said we earned our stripes is because if you know the animal itself, obviously a tiger has stripes. And I don't want to say obviously for those of you viewers who don't know out there, tigers have stripes. So that's the reason why I said we earned ours through trials and tribulations, through trials and error, through war wounds, emotional wounds. We earned it. And by the time of completion, which would be graduation day, that's the reason of the title. And then the second question, the main message I want is, out of all of the characters in the book, you can pick one, you can pick several. You can apply that once again in your teaching with your children, your cousin, your nephew, your aunt. Heck, I'm hoping that a lot of educators and professors, kindergarten teachers, that's my mission. I would love for this book to get into the school system, because for every Dougie Benson, Ashley Brown, which was a boy who had alopecia, that started off his journey being teased, being hazed. By the end of that, he became a marketing guru, a guy who was very, or to this day, is very flamboyant, very strong in character and seasoned through adversity. That whole alopecia process, if people don't understand, it can be very awkward, especially in the 7th and 8th grade years. I mean, everyone's trying to find their identity through some type of fad. And in the late 90s, I mean, to my knowledge, it was one of the best times to be, a teenager, but not for him. And when you read that, you can use that to fuel you to have conversation, healthy conversations with other youth. And they don't have to have alopecia. We've discovered that, there are a lot of different teenagers and preteens now who are diagnosed with all kinds of different things, such as autism and certain mental health diagnosis, ADHD, and all kinds of different diagnoses, Benji. Instead of highlighting it and developing victimhood, they can walk away from reading this book more courageous and optimistic. You can pick a character like Dougie Benson, who literally was told in the middle of the football season that your grades were not good enough. That young man walked out of the high school in the book. He walked out of the high school, never to return, jumped right into the drug dealing world. And it affected not just Bernie. It affected Calvin and Tremont and younger guys in the school at that time, Lance Jameson and Cameron Mosby. These are all characters who are younger. The day that he left and slammed the door through the security and whatnot, you could take that small portion of the story and apply it. Because this stuff doesn't just happen in the city. It happens in the suburbs, whether they know it or not. It happens in upper scale America. It happens in the higher class places. It might not have the magnitude of what Dougie Benson went through, but it can be applied and it can be related, and you can empathize so that you can share that message through this book.
You have it. BJ, listen, I'm gonna hold off on offering reflections at this moment. We'll save it for closing out. You have another book that's still in creation, right? It's called Sweet Tooth. Now, people, as I mentioned, it's still in creation, so you're gonna have to check back in frequently through his Amazon and Barnes & Noble pages to purchase. But we have a couple of minutes here, BJ. Go into a brief description of what that title is really gonna represent.
No problem. Well, Benji, this book, Sweet Tooth, is going to capture the trials and tribulations of a young man who once again has come through some adversity, but he's using the wrong head to make decisions in his college experience. And through those bad mistakes, he procreates. He has a couple trips at the clinic. He's able to have dialogue with people through platonic relationships. He's able to find himself because he's been chasing things that are carnal things that are materialistic, and things that are baseless to those deep thinkers. This will also help the readers, because this demographic will be the college years, I'd say all the way to folks maybe a little bit younger than 30. But if you're in college, I mean, you have people that are in college in their 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah,
so I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I encourage anyone to buy that book once it comes out. But the trials and tribulations of this young man can be once again applied, and you can use it to teach. Everything that I plan on writing from here on out, Benji, is all about teaching tools. It's never really about just the gain. It's more about the experience and making sure that your voice is heard through writing, which is something that I feel like should be more encouraged now more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to send a special thank you to these individuals: Roy Berry, Tyrone Gooseby, Sandra Washington, Lance Jeter, Kenneth Johnson, Blair Cockfield, Ashley Brown, DeWarren Ford, Alana Carter, Regis Bolden, Lewis Collier, Sean Francis Coleman, my parents, my family. I love you.
You know, listen, BJ is an educator at heart. I can tell. As he mentioned, these two books and any other project that he writes in the future is all going to have that educational undertone. Now, again, whether it comes through his background, his background isn't in education, but of course, working with inner city youth, that takes that education portion to do it. Or if it comes from his background as just being a father, I think the words that he has on the page, people, this is so much bigger than just a story. This is a movement, okay? This is a lifestyle change. When we're talking about We Earned Our Stripes, focusing on teens, and we know, listen, it might seem like an eternity ago that I was a teenager, but I remember, man, that is a tough time from varying places, right? Depending on the community that you come from and the group of friends that you're aligned with. You know, listen, that comes with some battles, and you have to earn your stripes to get through it and balance it all out. And then what I love about Sweet Tooth, and I know we didn't go into a big discussion on it, but people, can we talk about just the taboo around sex and how we don't have enough conversations to prepare our children for the world that comes with it? Right now, listen, again, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm the youngest of 6. I got 5 older brothers, okay? And let me tell you, learning about sex was not in the right way from 5 older brothers, right? I learned about it and I knew about it, but I learned it in the wrong way. Now, again, very, very fortunate in my circumstance to see not only my brothers, to see those around me and the decisions that they made and the consequences that they were led into through those decisions. And I've always been a very analytical person, right? I've analyzed situations and understood, okay, well, if that's what that's going to lead to, maybe I don't go down that particular path, especially as a teenager, young adult. But listen, everybody has their own journey to travel on. And I love Sweet Tooth for the fact that it talks about, listen, sex is a real thing. And you may want to have your children go into that with full maturity and go into that making all of the proper decisions. But at the end of the day, we know that this is a growing and vastly changing world. And that might not always be the case. So we have to have those conversations and have that open dialogue to make sure that there is a safe way for our children to learn from that. I mean, people, that's a rabbit hole that we can go down, and that's going to be for the next interview because there is so much to be gained here. I'm going to finish off by saying Amazon and Barnes & Noble are where you have to go. We Earned Our Stripes, A Tiger's Tale is one of the titles you got to pick up. Sweet Tooth is the one still in creation that's going to be released, but check back in frequently because BJ Tench has a lot in store that you're going to need to get involved in. I'm telling you, this is so much bigger than words on the page. I said it before. I'm going to say it again. This is a movement. This is a lifestyle change. This is a fantastic resource to add to your shelf. An even better gift to add to someone else's. So head on over there today, pick up your copies. You can thank me later. BJ, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. Such an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, and how can I forget? Killer Son, and your family, and Kenny Johnson. Obviously, if you read the book, you'll understand how both of those characters, even though they're not, fully their names, y'all know how I feel about both those people. Aaron Shakespeare is my best man because he's an embodiment of all of us. But Kenny, man, he's he's the brain trust for a lot of my savage moments. I hope he doesn't take that personal. And Killer, I don't know, you was my best friend, co-captain in a lot of ways, and again, I hope I'm not overstepping any boundaries. But let's get to it, man. Dang.